Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to take us through what our Syrinx development team have been doing for the last half. We didn't do anything through quarter one to explain what we've been through, so I'm going to cover everything we've done for the first half of 2024. So I'm going to go through what we've been working on, enhancements. I'm going to go through some of the things that we've been done, some of the things that we've pulled through from Innovate, and then likewise what we're going to be doing for sort of the next quarter, roughly in terms of what we're working on, what we're developing. So if we start with the last quarter, so we have been working on some pretty big items. So in the last quarter, we have released Syrinx 365. That's gone to general availability. So that's something you can go outright and go and purchase and upgrade. Or if you're a new customer, then you can buy. So Syrinx 365, that's a big one. That's something we've been working on as a team for a long time now. So it's good to be able to see that out in the wild and being used. The second sort of thing that we've been working on, second big project, is Syrinx 365 Cloud. So there are essentially three phases to this. The first one is all about online accounting. So it's your QuickBooks Online, it's your Zeros, your Access Financials, and other accounting integrations using our web API. So there's a selection there to begin with. That has just gone to beta, so we're just starting onboarding customers now, and it's exciting to see that go. And the next sort of big piece that I want to talk about is essentially Syrinx with the start of our new e-commerce offering. So it's just the beginning. So this is QuikLink. This will allow you to give your customers the ability to self-serve. So anytime you are in one of your Syrinx contracts, you can email that to a customer, and with that email will be a link. Your customer will then be able to click on that link, and that's going to take you through to essentially a contract page. You can click into each of your different assets, each of a customer's items that they've got on hire. And from there, they can request an off hire, they can report a breakdown, or they can send the documents to somebody else. If there's an operator that doesn't necessarily have access to these documents offhand, then as a customer of yours, they can say, I'm going to click on that button, I'm going to send this certificate or instruction document to a different email address. So it gives you that functionality there, and likewise you can download the documents yourself. So that's exciting. That's the start of our e-commerce offering. There will be more coming, more around the wider consumer portal, but that's a little bit later on. So that's where we are right now. In terms of other pieces that we've been developing, we've taken quite a lot of ideas over the past sort of 6 months or so from Innovate. And so I just want to sort of summarize just a few of the pieces that we've pulled through. So we've done quite a lot with our Syrinx API. We know that everybody or a lot of customers want sort of the best-in-class sort of module, if you like, the best-in-class piece of software for a given module, whether that be for a CRM, whether that be for accounting. So we do quite a lot of work on our Syrinx API, allowing you to integrate as you need to. So some of the things that we've developed over this last sort of 6 months are around accounting. So we've had the ability to integrate with an accounting system for a while now, and we've just sort of heard from customer feedback that actually there are some holes that we'd like to be able to plug by adding some more pieces. So we've now got depreciation endpoints. So either you can get depreciation information out of Syrinx, or likewise you can push depreciation information back into Syrinx from an accounting system if you're using that, or another system if you have a different system that's not necessarily accounting, but you're managing your assets, you're depreciating, you can push that back into Syrinx. And the other two pieces that we've done for accounting are around the customer account aged balances. So that's something that you can essentially push into Syrinx if you've got an accounting system that's keeping on top of sort of what a customer owes and things like that. You can now push that back into Syrinx, which you couldn't before. And the final one is around the unpaid invoices. So with our transfer tool, Syrinx can pull a list of unpaid invoices from an accounting system that we've already got an integration with. And so this is then adding that functionality for when you're building your own integration. So you could have anything from Harmony to Dynamics to anything else. If you're managing your invoices in that, you're keeping track of what's paid, what's not paid, you can then push that list of unpaid invoices into Syrinx. Then the last one I wanted to touch on from a UInnovate perspective is the ability to send an SMS from the driver scheduler. So we heard that obviously you have drivers that are out on the road. They might have run into an unexpected road closure, an accident, whatever it might be. You don't want your drivers necessarily contacting your customers as they're sort of driving or navigating different roads. So essentially, this gives you in the depot the ability to go into the driver scheduler, send an SMS to the customer to say, hey, the driver's on his way, he's just had a bit of a problem, he'll be there in 60 minutes or whatever that might be. So it is just another way to keep that touch point with your customer. So in a quick sort of summary, that's what we've been working on for the last 6 months. Obviously, those first 3 points are pretty big projects. And we have pulled more from UInnovate, but they were sort of the bigger topical ones for right now.
So we're clear, the things that you're talking about with UInnovate, those are in Syrinx V4?
No, these have gone into Syrinx 365.
Okay, cool. Are there any things that we want to add or mention as far as developing anything in Syrinx V4, or is everything going into 365 now?
Pretty much everything is going into 365 now. There's the odd defect that's being done for V4. There's a question mark over how we are going to deal with mobile apps. So at this point in time, as we know it, then yeah, it's just defects really going into V4. That is in defects being fixed in V4.
Okay, cool. All right, so you mentioned the first phase of Syrinx 365 online. What's phase 2, and what's like kind of the timeline for that?
So phase 2 for Syrinx in the cloud is supporting Sage 50. So we know that sort of Sage 50 is one of the most popular accounting systems out there. So that's our second phase. The development for that is finishing at the end of this sprint, so in a week or so. And from that point in time, we'll obviously do our internal testing. We don't want to pass it out to everyone without getting it through some rigorous testing first, and then we'll be releasing that. So from an initial perspective, we'll be sort of releasing that into sort of an early adoption phase in July, and then we'll be looking a little bit after that to sort of go more broad with that. And then so phase 3 is obviously going to come a bit after that. We're probably looking August, September to get into an early adopter period. That is essentially to support the other on-prem accounting system. So that's your Sage 200, it's your Access Dimensions, Opera, all the other pieces that our transfer tool currently supports.
Perfect. All right, you mentioned early on, obviously, Syrinx 365 and Syrinx 365 Cloud. We've spent a lot of time on. What's so cool and new about it?
Syrinx 365 has some really cool pieces. So one of which is a little bit technical, so people might not be too interested in it, but it essentially allows you to get Cyber Essentials accredited. The product itself, it's all on modern technology. It's all on more modern tech stacks. It has sort of password policies and things that sort of comply with what's needed. So that's the first one. It's not a big shiny piece that you're going to see, but obviously as a business and for cybersecurity, it's a pretty big piece for that. We have a global search. So have you ever had that scenario where you get given a document number? Is it a contract? Is it an invoice number? Is it an advice note? I don't know what it is. I can go and put it in there, and it can essentially show me results for all three of them. I can search in there for Mr. Smith, and it will show me Mr. Smith as a customer. It can show me a contract for Mr. Smith. It will show me an advice note from Mr. Smith. And it just allows me to search lots of different objects or entities without having to go into what would previously have been lots of individual search screen. I'd have to go and search in, go and query customer. I'd have to go into query contract, query invoice, or whatever it might be. So this just pulls a lot of different searches into one. So that in itself is really cool. But then even if you go down to the local searches, so if you say I'm going specifically to search for a hire contract or an advice note, you go into the specific searches. Then when you do that, all of the grids are customizable. You can resize them as you need to. A regular thing that we heard with V4, some regular feedback was that it is quite hard as a new person to understand. There are lots of columns on there where there are tiny, tiny columns and you can only fit one or two letters there. So you've just got to know what that column is. Otherwise, it's useless to you. And so it's a bit of a steep learning curve from that perspective. And so having Syrinx 365 where you can resize your fields, it's what you expect now from a modern application, but it's that step up from Syrinx V4. But you can resize your fields, you can move your fields around. So if you say I want the contract status to be the first column, I want the customer to be the first column, or just you can move it around and customize it to what you want to do, how you see your daily job working, what's efficient for you. And then sort of the little bit of cream on top of that is that you can then save that search. So save that sort of set of filters. You can pre-filter it to say, I'm in a contract search. I want to search for open status. I want to search for is cross-hire, so I can see all my open cross-hire contracts. And you can set that as your default. You can save it just as a view, so you can select that easily without having to go and manually create it every time. And so that's a really cool piece as well. And then we've got lots of cool things that we're looking at, sort of hopefully doing in the future, not necessarily for Q3. So I won't delve into them too much, but we've got some cool things that we're looking at around sort of a day at a glance, pulling all of the screens that you'd regularly use into one area, and quick contract. The whole concept of being able to just create a fairly basic contract without operated hires, without cross hires, but you can then do those within the new 365 screens, which mean that essentially you'd be able to create multiple contracts at the same time, which is a challenge that we hear a lot from people that typically take people that take inquiries over the phone, or that have a busy counter desk. You might be in the middle of dealing with sort of a phone query, you're entering a contract. You haven't quite finished the contract, but you've done enough to be able to say, okay, Mr. Customer, I can put the phone down. And then you've got a new customer at the counter wanting something else. And so you've got to get rid of that contract in V4. You've got to close it because you can't have the same contract creation window open twice. And so this then essentially solves that problem. It makes it a lot more efficient when you're creating contracts if you don't need to use the sort of the wider functionality around cross-hire and operated.
Okay, and all this stuff is made possible by it being on the new technology that 365 is built on.
That's correct.
Perfect. Okay, you already talked about what's coming up in Q3. Was there anything else that was coming up that you wanted to talk about?
Yep. So quick contracts and data glance might not necessarily be Q3. They could potentially be Q4 items, but we've got some things that sort of we're working on now that we'll be delivering in Q3. So customer site specific pricing. So at the moment we have pricing agreements. You can set them to a customer, but you could have a customer site in the north. You could have a customer site in the south, and you want to give them different rates essentially. At the moment, you can't do that with Syrinx in V4 or in 365, but what we're working on is a customer site specific level for pricing agreements, and all of that is being pulled through into sort of the new 365 look and feel, into the new views. And so not only is that given the additional functionality, it's also doing it in a new and different way though, but with the same logic behind it, in that obviously you have the hierarchy. It will look at a site-specific pricing first and go up to customer and working its way up the tree. So that logic is the same, just with the, added level of that site-specific piece. We're also working on multiple collections being able to be done off of one off hire. That's something that we hear a lot of challenges with. So if you have 4 items on a contract and you know that you can only fit 2 of those items because they're so big, you can only fit 2 of them on one lorry, then you'd need to send out 2 lorries to go and collect those. In Syrinx at the moment, you can only have 1 collection to an off hire. So you end up having to do 2 partial off hires, which is just essential admin work. It's just things that you need, things that you need to do for Syrinx that in real life you just want to say this whole contract is off hired with all 4 items. Let me go and split out those collections essentially. And so that's something that we're working on, which is a big point. We hear a lot of sort of pain points over the manual admin of I've got to do 10 partial off hires for 10 different machines or whatever it might be. As we've touched on, we've also got the sort of the second and third phases of Syrinx in the cloud. So there's a lot of work going into them in supporting Sage 50 for phase 2 and our other on-prem accounting solutions that we support for phase 3 with Sage 200 and Access Dimensions, and there's a few others in there as well. So that's going to be a big focus of ours as Syrinx 365 in the cloud is a big sort of initiative that we're working on right now. So yeah, that'll take up quite a lot of time. And the final one that I wanted to mention was some sort of initial integration to Record 360. So obviously, Point of Rental have brought Record 360 into the fold, and it's an awesome piece of software that's got some cool pieces to it. And so we just basically want to make that sort of usability a lot better, a lot more efficient by just having an integration with Syrinx. That will be going into Syrinx 365. That won't be going back into V4, but we'll be having that integration with 365, and yeah, and it'll just help sort of start that set of integration with Record 360, and then we'll iterate and sort of get a lot deeper with the integrations as we go. But yeah, this is just the first stage of that integration.
All right. Well, it sounds exciting. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunities and things that are going to get added, and integrations and all this kind of stuff that's happening with Syrinx 365. Why? So I guess what's the difference between regular Syrinx 365 and in the cloud? Besides, the cloud is in the cloud, or is it just it's in the cloud?
So Syrinx 365 Cloud it's the same software. It's the same Syrinx 365 from 98% of usability. So the core functionality is all the same. You get the same functionality. There's nothing cut or added from that perspective. There's a couple of slight differences in terms of printing. Obviously, printing, you go into a cloud application, and it's a little bit different. Essentially, you basically print to a PDF which shows up in your browser, which we will be working on later on in the year to be able to give you that seamless experience to the point that you don't really know whether you're on cloud or not. You could be printing in Syrinx 365, you could be printing in cloud. So that's one of the little differences, and one of the other sort of minor differences is around how you manage files. But we've got some sort of fairly good ways of handling that, because obviously when you're uploading information to Syrinx, it's not just on your server in your network. This is you're essentially putting files in the cloud then. So it's not quite the same process, but it's still fairly slick and fairly easy to do. So no dramas there. In terms of logging in, you'll log in with global credentials, and so that's a bit of a Syrinx or a point of rental term, I should say. So a global login essentially allows you to log into your RMS. So in our instance, that's Syrinx. But it also allows you, with the same credentials, to go and log into POR1 for mobile applications as well. So it's that one place. It's like that SSO type of piece, and it also does allow integrations with sort of other Active Directory providers as well. So you can then use those with that. Then the other big pieces around cloud are what you'd expect from cloud applications. So I can access it from anywhere. I don't need a VPN to go and access my Syrinx. I could be sat on a train just connected to my mobile hotspot from my phone or something like that, or Wi-Fi if you've got a nice train, and I can just log into Syrinx. I can just go onto Chrome or Edge, whatever browser sort of you're typically using. I can just go into login.pointofrental.com, sign in with my global logging, and then that way it will just take me through to my Syrinx system. So that is a real big benefit of it. It's just that easy access anywhere. If you've got somebody, if you've got a manager or senior person who might be on holiday and you just want to ask them, can you just quickly take a look at this? Then again, they can log in from wherever they are to get onto the system. So no need for a VPN, no need for a specific software to access it. Don't need to be on the network or anything like that. So that's really good. And then the other one that I just wanted to mention was just around a DMZ aspect. So with Syrinx, if you have it on-prem, if you've got WS for like an e-commerce perspective, or if you have any of our mobile apps from sort of the legacy mobile apps is typically what we've been referring to them to now, they'll need a port opening. So typically it's more on the IT company, which is obviously more outgoings to you as a customer, which is something that cloud gets away from because we're hosting it. It all goes through our global API. And so from that perspective, there's no need to have specific ports open. It's not something that your IT need to worry about sort of in terms of security. All of that is on us. So dealing with the security or dealing with backups and all of those type of policies, all of that is on us as point of rental. As a customer, you don't have to worry about any of that.
And we do have a team of experts in cloud security. So
We do. We've got a pretty good team over there.
good. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention that we haven't gotten around to?
Nope, I think I've covered everything.
All right, then give me a good sign off real quick.
So thanks for taking the time to listen. Hopefully you see the benefit in what we have been developing, what we're going to be working on. We'll carry on working on it, and we'll see you again soon.